What's up, traders? Let's just get this over with. Not exactly sure how many trades I took. I think this is all just one trade. AUPH was technically all just one trade. So GGPI I had two trades. So 5 total trades, winning on 2 of them. So 2 for 5 today. If there's any day that I could enjoy seeing the like button get smashed, I'd appreciate that. Today kind of sucked for a multitude of reasons. But as you can see, it was a red day. And let's jump right into it. SOFI was our first trade. You can see this made a pretty nice move. Again, if you want to watch these live over on Twitch, feel free. I haven't marked them yet, but they should be marked by the time you see this video. But yeah, first trade, got in. It did try to pull back, and we had a take profit order. I think it was literally a penny under this. I don't remember exactly where it is, but we missed a take profit by a penny, or we were the bid 4 times today. And I don't remember exactly which was which because it was all kind of blurred together. But I remember 4 separate times we were either a penny away from being on the bid or we were on the bid and didn't get a single fill between SOFI and AUPH. So if we get filled there, we'd restart the trade. This is a different story. Might not cut this at the highs. But anyways, we didn't get filled. So it goes back against us. We add in, we do a 1-2. We split the 2 into 1 just because we were at a pretty key area up through that whole dollar. And then it continues. We get to that cool little 1320 area. We add a bunch in, and it actually does try to pull back. And this is where one of the times I think it bounced either right off our average, or I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it bounced right off our average. I don't remember exactly, or maybe we were on the bid at 1301. I don't remember. You can go watch it live, but it goes all the way down and then all the way back up. And I remember in the moment that was part of because usually I'll wait for some consolidation and then a move higher, but this gave us such a big pullback, right? If you look at the high where it was and the initial move all the way down here, about halfway is right around there. And that's where it pulled back to. So the fact that it gave us that pullback that we look for, you hear me say it all the time. I look for the intense move into the pullback. What happens after that, I have no idea what's going to happen, right? It could do whatever it wants. It could go up and fake out by a penny through high of day, 1 penny, and then flush immediately afterwards. Or it could go through high of day and squeeze up through 1350. Now, considering I added in decent size here, I was looking for this to be the top. So when I hit the add here, I said, okay, we're going to look for that pullback. If we get the pullback, we're going to look to, take profits and scale out, right? We're going to try to take some profits and then try to get the rest of the come down like it did after it faked us out. And that's that. But when it went back up to high of day, my thought process is this is going to rip up to 1350. And I don't want to be in full size. So I'm going to take half off and look to add those back up higher, recycle those shares and get back in with a better average and look to ride it back down because it still hasn't had, like the big pullback yet, if it's willing to go right back up to the highs like that. But it literally went through by a penny and flushed immediately after. Didn't even give us a chance to put those shares back in up there. So we essentially had taken half our shares off for a realized loss at the highs. And then we had half the shares left to scale out, which ended up making this not a horrible trade. We still lost like $36, but could have easily, we had 1,000 shares up here. So, and our average was like right around, I think it was 13. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was decent enough to the point where we would have had a nice trade. It would have been a really nice trade. It would have been like $100 trade. So pretty frustrating that a possible $100 trade turned into a negative $37 trade. On to the next one, AUPH. Equally as frustrating. So this one was a little bit more annoying because it kept doing this. It would make a decent little move from previous resistance, and then it would try to pull back just a little bit, nowhere near 50%, just a little bit, and then go higher. So on this one, I almost cut this one at the highs here just because I didn't like the way that it was trading and it didn't give us that pullback. And I was like, maybe this is going to actually go. And I didn't cut it for whatever reason, just because I was like, well, it hasn't been 5 minutes. If it wants to go, I'm fine with it. Well, then it started to go, and I tried to let it go as far as, until I felt like an actual jiggle. And that was right around here at that 1980 area. So we hit it for basically a 1-1, right? 200 shares. So we have 400 shares. Well, up here at 20, which I guess it didn't really matter in hindsight because there's no way my average would have been above 1987. I tried to hit this for 400 shares to do a 112, but it wouldn't let me. It kept saying I didn't have buying power. And it ended up being some error on Interactive Broker's side. And I still don't understand why. We tried talking to DOS, couldn't get a hold of IB, which is nothing new. You have to, do some crazy things to get a hold of them. And needless to say, I only ended up adding 200 shares because it let me. So basically it was a 111, which I don't remember. I think our average was like 1975 or something like that. So when it tried to pull back and wasn't, and it was doing the exact same thing it was doing down here, you could feel like the bid was being propped. It would have like a decent drop and then just get bought right back up. I was like, okay, this thing's going to continue. So if it breaks 5-day, I'm just going to cut half the shares and then try to add them back when it makes a new high. So that's exactly what I did. And so we added the shares back here. It starts to fall down, has a nice little push down. I'm expecting, for it to at least retest this area. That's what I'm looking for, that 20 retest. It gets bought right back up, starts going back up towards the highs. And I immediately said, well, I'm gonna stop out of these break even as close as I can, and then look to add these back through the $0.50, because this didn't get through the $0.50. It only went to 20.47, and that'll be in the high of day. And so I was expecting it to, since it got bought back up, just like the previous 2 times, for it to at least try to go through the $0.50. I was going to add the shares back on that side, and then again, look for this move down, because it still hadn't made any kind of an actual attempt at a pullback. I realized it faked us out. This time, it gave us a decent amount of time to at least evaluate if we wanted to add those shares back in. So I ended up doing that at 29. And immediately I go to hit the stop at high of day button, because at this point, if it tried to pull back, tried to go higher, didn't, but then tries to come back down again, if this doesn't form into a descending triangle that ends up working, I don't want nothing to do with it. I'm just done with it. So I want to set the stop at high of day. But guess what I do? I hit the stop at break even button, and it immediately exits the trade because my average is lower. It was at 20. When I hit the button, I went back and checked. It brought my average to 2019. So I would have had that 600 shares at 2019. Granted, I had some realized loss at this point. It was like 200 and I think it was actually over $300 of realized. No, it had to be 200 something, because this essentially I covered basically at the same price. So it was like right around $300. And so when I added those shares, I immediately hit the button, and then sure enough, I was pretty flustered. I was pretty pissed off, mainly because of how the trade was going, how it wasn't working. And then I hit the wrong button. So now I'm like, well, do I just get right back in? Because that was that was what I was attempting to do, and just put the stop at high of day. And I contemplated that for, at least like 2 minutes. And then finally it started to drop below that candle. And I was like, I just can't do it. Like my average wouldn't be the same, et cetera, et cetera. I'm giving up, shares. And then I started doing the math. If I got back in those 600 shares and cut it at high of day, how much it would have added to the already realized loss. So I started, P&L trading a little bit in my head. And it was just a big clusterfuck, and I completely messed this trade up. And it was a tough trade. It was just a tough trade that didn't work out. Started, of course, these last couple of days, I've been trying to up my size. Of course, we run into a trade like this right as we start to do it. It's just, as GDT would say, your tuition to bigger size. And yeah. So that ended up being my AUPH trade, and I'm pretty frustrated with it. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, if we want to pull up our chart real quick, we can look at it. It's really not that big of a deal, right? Look, there's the hump. If you really want to see, you can see it on the side there, but just when you see it blown up, like it's that little guy. It's not a big deal. Frustrating, yes. Big deal, no. We're gonna move on. Next trade was on GGPI, which was also a loser. And it did like the exact same thing, but this one was a little bit more defined, right? This one made a little bit more sense. Nice little move up through previous resistance areas. And then we get an attempt at a pullback. Not what I was looking for. I was looking for more out of it. And eventually it goes back high of day. So we jump out, and then we get the squeeze, right? So then we get back in, and it finally gives us that move back down, comes right back down through that resistance area we were holding on to a little bit. And we ended up covering out. It looks like we got the bottom of that almost. Well, I'll try it again. It did get under there, but second trade ended up being much better. I think we lost like $17 on this first trade, and then we ended up making like $50 on the second trade to bring us to that plus 34. And we had one more trade on IBRX. This was a trade that you wouldn't normally see me take. This was actually the first trade after the AUPH trade. But I was like looking at the chart, and I'm like, I'm pretty flustered. We got through the $0.50. We're at that key little 20 cents through the $0.50 that I always like to look for. And if you look at all these candles, I'm not really justifying why I took the trade because it wasn't a great trade, but it was kind of grindy. And then we finally got like 2 decent candles in a row. And that was why I took it. But then I looked over at the hourly. And if you kind of look, there's some pretty key levels there. It's kind of hard to see over here with all these extra lines on it, but there's some pretty key levels there that I drew that line there at 81 and 97. So I told myself when I was in the trade, I'm just going to let it go through 81 if it wants to, and then add up here at $8 and through if it wants to go. And that was going to like be my risk off. But it ended up working out. We ended up scaling out of it and making close to $30 on it. So got a little bit back. In the end, down 265. Crappy. Especially when if AUPH or SOFI hit a couple of those profit targets, or if I don't end up hitting stop at break even and I hit the stop at high of day button, I would have easily made, I did the math a little bit earlier, depending on how I would have scaled, it would have been anywhere between $80 to $100 off of that loss. So it would have been like $180 to about $200 instead of almost $300. So it would have been a pretty big difference. Would have brought it down to under $200 loss, which would have been nice, closer to 150 actually. And it is what it is. Our max loss any given day is $800. So we didn't even get near that, but I never really want to get near that, right? I'm more of that sniper type trader. I'm not really necessarily looking to scale in. I love getting that one extra add, right? If you get that entry and it just keeps going, it's almost like that free money essentially, right? So if you get that nice add, bring your average up, and then you finally get that flush. But these moves weren't necessarily that. These were like kind of almost grindy. There wasn't a lot of volume in them. So it was like kind of push, a little bit of a pullback, and then push again, and a little bit of pullback, push again. And those are very hard to trade. They're the really tough trades. I like the ones that are just straight up and then like that big FOMO push, and then usually you get that nice reject back down, and you can scale in on that push up to get that move back down and scale out if you want to. But yeah, again, frustrating. Going to move on. That's all I got. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Always appreciate the support. If you do have any questions or comments, leave those down below. If you want to sympathize with me, feel free to leave those down below as well. I'd love to get some interaction down below in the comment section. I hear it helps the YouTube algorithm, especially hitting that like button. So make sure you do that. And if you're not already subscribed, you should subscribe. I know there's like 80% of you that watch my videos that don't subscribe. Like what? I don't get it. What is there? What is that? Come on. If there's ever a day, hit the subscribe button. I plan on doing something pretty big for 5,000 subscribers when we finally get there. We're moving pretty fast. We're already at like almost 4.3, and we just passed 4,000. So let's do it, right? Let's keep growing. Let's get this going. I'm trying to scale, which hopefully, not hopefully, it probably will just bring in the more numbers because people like seeing bigger numbers. But I'm excited to keep moving forward myself. Like I want to scale and I want to see the bigger numbers because I am ready to push myself. I'm ready to make those bigger numbers and make a living out of this instead of it being like I know I can do this. Like it's just going to take time. Like I feel like I'm ready, and I'm trying not to push too fast because we all know how that can work out, but I am trying to not get comfortable. And right now, today, I was very uncomfortable, which is a good thing. But I did just try to push myself a little bit. And of course, it was like I don't remember if it was Monday. I think it was kind of Monday. And then Tuesday, I was like, come on, let's start pushing. And then today I woke up, like I actually got some good sleep yesterday. I was, you guys saw me yesterday, but I was ready. And unfortunately, the market decided to humble me a little bit, I guess. And on to tomorrow. So until then, have a good rest of your day. Peace.